Prime Minister Modi's third NDA government is beginning to take shape, but the clamour for cabinet berths has begun. And why? Because for 10 years, the BJP enjoyed a simple majority in parliament. It didn't need coalition allies for the 272 mark. It needs its allies to make up the 272 mark. Let's first look at the NDA breakup to understand why the BJP needs its NDA allies to form a government. Now, the NDA is 303 seats all told. The TDP is the single largest outside party. It's got 16 MPs. The JDU, Nitish Kumar's party, 12 seats. And the Shinde's Shiv Sena, 7 MPs. The Lok Janshakti party, 5 MPs. The HAM, 1, and MPs from 3 other parties make up 10 other members of parliament, making that grand figure of 303. And today we're going to talk about how the NDA and the BJP will divide those portfolios and what the allies demand from it. Let me start by introducing my guests for the evening. Joining us today in the studio are my colleague Brijesh Pandey, and joining us on Zoom are Dr. Anil K. Verma and Banuchandar Nagarajan. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Brijesh, I want to start by asking you, what do allies really want in return for their support? What has been the history so far? We're entering an era of coalition governments of the kind that we haven't seen in a decade now. There is a very large number of young people in India who probably don't know what it is like to live in a coalition government.
Absolutely. I think, this is going to require a complete rejig of mentality and the mindset, because, BJP ran a tight ship, from 2014 till 2024, with an absolute majority. It didn't require any help from either, and a fairly comfortable majority rather, from any of its allies. Now, all of a sudden, it is facing a situation in which it's dependent on JDU, it's dependent on TDP, and then now, you have to factor in their demands as well.
Right.
And I think, one of the biggest challenge for the BJP will be to strike a balance, because, everybody right now would want the center cabinet berth.
Right.
So how do you make adjustment to it? How do you juggle key portfolios, keep the most important portfolio like, finance, defense, home to yourself, but then what happens to rural development, which is an extremely important ministry.
Yes.
People don't know much about it, but it's much important than, many of the prime key ministries, or what happens to agriculture, infra ministries and all. So I think, it will require a hell of a Herculean task for the government to make sure that, who gets what and how they are, placated also after once the distribution is done.
Of course. But, Brijesh, like you mentioned yesterday, the fact that the BJP has a fair number of MPs as compared to what Atal Bihari Vajpayee had back. He was less than 200 seats. So his dependence on allies was far greater than what Prime Minister Modi's is today. But be that as it may, you have two very key parties, the JDU with 12 seats and the TDP with 16 seats, and these are hard bargainers.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they are the past master when it comes to coalition politics.
Right.
And the reason why I said that we cannot compare Atal Bihari Vajpayee to the current dispensation is that he was surrounded by very powerful regional satraps. Every party powerful in their state and with a mind of its own. So they were not ready to play second fiddle to anybody, forget playing it to the BJP.
Yes.
And that led to a lot of, heartburns and problem for the Vajpayee to maneuver around. Right now, I mean, if you take care of PDP and TDP and JDU, then the minor parties also know that, the elections are there in Bihar. So you can adjust some LJP there or HAM there. So you can adjust other parties in a slightly different way. Shiv Sena is not going to drive a tough bargain because assembly elections are literally around the corner.
100 days away.
Yeah, exactly. So they know that, the situation can change drastically from a position of strength to an absolute having no position or no say in the government.
But just let's look at what the TDP has been asking for, Brijesh. They are asking for the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, of course. Ministries like rural development, housing and urban affairs, ports and shipping, road transport and highways, Jal Shakti Ministry, MOS Finance Ministry, and of course what we discussed yesterday, the special economic package for Andhra Pradesh. And of course, let's not forget Amravati, the elephant in the room, the unfinished capital, Chandrababu Naidu's dream project. So I'm going to bring in Dr. Anil Verma here. Dr. Verma, TDP or the JDU, who's going to drive a harder bargain for cabinet berths? The requests are already started to pour in. Who will be tougher to placate? Who will be easier to manage?
I think this is, very difficult to answer because both are, in a very dictating position,
Yes,
and the Prime Minister will have to factor in their request. But
yes,
one thing, let me tell you that both are, established leaders in their own states,
right.
and their prime consideration is to be stable over there. And we should not forget that they are the kingmakers in Delhi, but
Yes,
it is the other way around also.
right.
So that is one thing we have to remember. And the second thing, there are certain ministries. I mean, after 2003, that amendment, 91st Amendment of the Constitution,
Yeah.
which now says that the Council of Ministers size has to be at the maximum 15% of the strength of the Lok Sabha.
Yes,
So that means optimum 81 members in the Council of Ministers.
yes.
So that's also a compulsion. There is an upper cap.
There's
Earlier
a
there was
ceiling,
not,
yes,
but now,
absolutely. Yeah.
there is an upper ceiling that we have to always remember. So they also understand the compulsions of the constitutional compulsions, the
Right.
size of the Council of Ministers. But at the same time, it is always, a good strategy to start with more things, and then of course there is a compromise. So both
Yes.
will have to compromise. Modi will have, I mean, there are 8 or 9 ministries which I suspect Modi
Yes.
will not be willing to cede to the opposition parties, which are
Right.
very, very important, like home, finance, external
Yes,
affairs,
yes.
road transport, civil aviation,
Right.
agriculture. So these are some of the very key, things which certainly the Modi government will like to retain.
Yeah, you have that core of the cabinet committee on security portfolios that Dr. Verma was talking about: home, defense, finance, and external affairs. And in the last couple of decades, there's only been one minister who's entered that hallowed sanctum sanctorum, which is George Fernandez, who was also the NDA convener. Do you see the possibility of anyone from the current NDA entering the CCS ministries?
It doesn't look like. But what I would say that, that if you're talking about TDP, they
Yes.
would be very interesting in various other ministries, which
Right.
doesn't occupy, or which, people sitting in Delhi or covering government
Right.
don't think is very important, but it's very important to their scheme of things.
Yes.
Rural development.
Right.
I think the real fight is going to be about the infrastructure ministries,
Right.
road development ministries, which Nitin Gadkari is currently
Right.
holding.
Right.
There's going to be massive fighting for those kind of ministries. Agriculture is one ministry,
Yes.
which, which there are 2 to 3 claimants, both TDP and JDU claiming
Right.
for it. So I think, these allies will try to go into for those kind of ministries more, because their
Yes.
outlay, as Raghuvansh Prasad made that ministry,
Right.
rural development, the entire fund of Manrega is there.
Yes.
When you're talking about people's politics,
Right.
defense doesn't help you.
Yes.
But rural development, agriculture, infra, it helps you to
Defense
have that.
especially doesn't help you because the Agniveer scheme is in now, and you
You're
cannot
already
even.
having,
you have
contrary
trouble
opinions which is
there,
coming out.
and you have the JDU raising noises. But here you have the 3 orbits that we're looking at. The core, of course, which is the CCS.
Railway is one ministry which they will go after.
Yes, the railways is one ministry that the allies will want to look at, obviously, because look at the huge capital outlay there, 2.5 lakh crore. I'm going to bring in Banuchandar Nagarajan. Banuchandar, why has railways been such a lucrative cabinet berth for all allies? If you look at it, historically from the NDA one, you have Mamta, you have Nitish, who've been railway ministers. Do you think people are going to make a play for that? The parties are going to ask for the railway ministry?
Before getting to the nitty-gritty, Sandeep, let's look at a couple of organizing principles, both from the political side
Yes.
and the policy side, and then we'll get into the details. If you look at the political side, obviously we are in the era of coalition politics,
Yeah.
and to keep the flock together, you need both carrots and sticks. Okay?
Yes.
So by carrots, you mean there's a need for consensus builders, people like Nitin Gadkari ji or Rajnath Singh,
Yes.
okay, who can go and pacify people, talk and build a consensus.
Right.
And you know who wields the stick. So I do not
Yes.
go into that. So there'll be these incentives, political incentives, players who bring these skill sets into
Right.
the cabinet. Second thing is geographically, there'll be more representation in the Council of Ministers
Yes.
from the east, particularly
Yes.
West Bengal, Orissa, Telangana. And obviously, with the TDP in there, Andhra Pradesh, and so on, right? So there will be that skew as well. Policy-wise,
Yes.
we have to look at what the government's priorities are. In the speech that the Prime Minister gave in the BJP party
Yes.
office, he mentioned he mentioned agriculture. Okay,
Right.
so I'm assuming that that is going to be among the priorities, right? So
Right.
these are the governing principles. Now let's come to the ministries. The
Right.
ministries, I would like to divide it into 3 tiers. Okay, the tier
Right.
1 ministries are like finance, defense, external affairs.
Yeah, the core
right?
ministries. Yes.
Yeah, the tier 2 ministries are what Brijesh was saying: agriculture, railways,
Yes.
okay, rural development, education, and transport, so on. And there are tier 3 ministries like culture, health,
Right.
etc. Right? So shipping. So I think the tier 1 ministries are something that the BJP will retain for itself. The
Yes.
tier 2 ministries
Right.
will be given to the main partners, TDP and JDU, okay,
Right.
and the other smaller partners, right, like Shiv Sena, Eknath Shinde's party, or the
LJP.
Yes.
Ramvilas Paswan's party. Yeah, so all of these people will get the tier 3 ministries. So
Right.
I think this is how it will be organized. But who gets what
Yes.
will be fine-tuned later based on personalities and the other policy priorities of the government.
Right, absolutely. And Brijesh, this, coming to the railway ministry again, because it's in discussion that a lot of allies would want it. Given the fact that the railways was such a key ministry under Prime Minister Modi, over the last 5 years, you've had talk of the Vande Bharat trains, the flagship project of the government, and you have the bullet train project. Let's not forget that. That's due to be completed in this term of his government. Given the fact that there's so much riding on the railway ministry for the government, would they want to part with it and give it to an ally?
The question is not whether would they want to part with it. The question is whether they can retain it.
Right.
Bhanu, I agreed with most of what he said, but there was a slight disagreement with when you use the word carrot and stick.
Yes.
There is carrot. Right. There is no stick right now.
Right.
And the reason I'm saying why there is no stick is that politics is not ending right now.
Yes.
In this end of this year, you have election in two very crucial states.
Absolutely.
Maharashtra and Haryana. Chances are the BJP will lose both.
Right.
And given the kind of massive infighting which has erupted in Maharashtra, the NCP Shinde faction is like Ajit Pawar faction is down to the dome, and there's no there's only enthusiasm and confidence in the other side. Right. Haryana, we have seen what Bhupender Singh Hooda has done and delivered. Right. Next year you start with Jharkhand and Delhi. Which more chances
again,
of Arvind Kejriwal winning Delhi per se.
Right.
And then there is also the election of Bihar.
Yeah.
Boss, I don't see till 25 middle BJP is in any position to exercise any kind of political muscle.
So more of carrot and less. Yes.
If you lose two assemblies elections, in Maharashtra and Haryana, you will not be only in back foot in those two states. You will be back foot in the central ministry. Because you will have a coalition, India coalition with 234 MLAs and a growing number of states which they would be governing.
Right.
So I think till 2025 mid, it is going to be 95%. Carrot and
95% carrot and 5% stick. Dr. Verma, important point that Brijesh mentioned, the fact that, given that in the next couple of months you're going to go into assembly elections, 4 very key elections, 2 states where the BJP is in the opposition and 2 states where it's ruling and where it could well lose. So given these factors at play, do you think it's 95% carrot, 5% stick, and therefore most cabinet berths are up for negotiation, especially for allies that come from all the crucial states in the north?
Well, you see, I would not go into the quantification of numbers, because politics is a very dynamic thing.
Yes.
And you never know what will happen next day. Like in Uttar Pradesh, we never expected what has actually happened. So I would not go this kind of a straitjacket quantification of numbers, carrot and stick. But let me assure you that Modi will have to show the flexibility that is warranted to run a stable government, because you see, he has a wider agenda. He has an agenda of 2047.
Right.
And probably that wider agenda to make India strong, stable, and take it to the global world.
Yes.
So he would be also flexible, but at the same time, he would also probably succeed in impressing upon the coalition partners about his agenda and their, role in achieving that agenda. And the kind of seasoned politicians they are, Certainly, they have a right to put their claims, but they have also the flexibility to understand the larger partners' constraints. And railway, you were mentioning, I'm surprised that Ashwani is doing extremely well in railways,
Yes.
and Gadkari is doing extremely well in surface transport. So there are certain constraints which probably Modi would like to sell them. And there are there are other things to offer, like the special packages. There are
Yes.
so many other plum positions, like appointment of governors and other things. There are hundreds and hundreds of things through which it's not just the cabinet, but it's not the end of the coalition and
Right.
the demands. There will be so many things which will be coming up for grab in the or even after the formation of the cabinet. So
Right.
I think all of them will probably show the flexibility, and there will be a smooth transition to the Modi 3 government.
Right, absolutely. And loaves of fish and office, that's a term that was used in the past. I think it's coming back into our lexicon, as are many other expressions like coalition dharma, I'm sure, and the NDA convener. But Banuchandar, the TDP, it wants a special economic package for Andhra Pradesh, and it wants the revival of its capital project Amravati. How flexible will Chandrababu Naidu be for cabinet berths? Will he take a special package? What will he choose? What are his priorities right now, given the fact that he wants to consolidate his hold in Andhra Pradesh?
Just a quick point on the coalition of Dharma, and I'll just come to that point, Sandeep,
Yes.
if you'll allow me. See, first is if you look at the party, the number of seats that both the TDP and JDU has, okay, assuming that even one of these go away, the NDA will still have more than 272, right?
Right.
So I think people will have that in mind, because you don't want to be that one party that leaves the alliance but still the government continues, right? So unless the BJP manages to upset or both of these parties simultaneously, or both of these are more than two parties simultaneously, the coalition will sort of survive. Okay, that's number one. Number two is independents would not want this government to fall, because they would have struggled a lot to become MPs, and they would want the BJP government to continue.
Yes.
Right? Now, number three is the symbiotic relationship. Obviously, with JDU, the state government is dependent on BJP numbers, and the central government needs JDU numbers, right? So that is clear. Then comes to your point. Okay, with PDP doesn't need the numbers of the state, right? But PDP needs BJP for resources, for the reasons that you mentioned, right? The special package, okay, building of Amravati and so on. The other point is PDP cannot align with the Congress Congress at all. Okay, it will be political suicide for it. So these constraints are there. So it's not exactly black and white, and PD and the smaller parties can blackmail the BJP for more and more resources, right? So all of these are heavy, weathered political players, and they will know their constraints. And in fact, in the special package, I think there's going to be a lot of dicing and slicing, and BJP will agree to one thing now, one thing 2 years later, and all those sorts of mixing and matching will happen. Right. So one last point before I give it back to you is, see, we should remember that the age of the leaders also matter, because they will have their legacies in mind. Prime Minister Modi is 73, Naidu is 74, Nitish is 73. They don't have any more. They don't have any time to play games, go back, come back again, and so on. So they will focus on that. I think they would have been chastised by going away and coming back. And I think now the alliance is what I would call is in a Goldilocks situation. So I think all the policies will be within these constraints, which is not looking terrible as of now. But come, like what Brijesh was saying, come Bihar elections. Okay, maybe that is the time there can be shakiness. But as I said before, even if JDU alone leads, the government will survive, and JDU will also know that.
Right. So a Goldilocks situation, and more greys than black and white, as Banuchandar mentioned. But Brijesh, there's a talk of this demand for the TDP to get the speaker's position.
Yeah.
How critical is the speaker going to be in the Lok Sabha, given the fact that these are parties which don't have the huge numbers, and they're possibly wary of being swallowed up by the BJP, 16 seats and 12 seats. So where does the speaker fit in this equation?
Whenever you have a coalition government, I'm not saying that this is applicable only to this government. Whenever you have a coalition government, parties want to, like we saw in the state of Bihar, the person who had the speaker can thwart off many mini rebellions.
And in Maharashtra.
And in Maharashtra also.
Yes.
And how he changes the entire composition of the game. But if you don't have your guy at the top,
Yes.
situation can be completely different. You
Right.
can have a reverse operation Lotus on the TDP and also
Yes.
on the JDU, and
Right.
the entire situation might change.
Right.
I think what we've been given to understand by TDP sources is that
Yes.
they are very, very keen. And they are
Right.
kind of insisting on the post of speaker. And they say
Yes.
like that is one of how this is how negotiation starts. You start
Right.
ask for 100. In your mind that 25
Yes.
is the upper limit on which I can settle.
Right.
But the TDP has conveyed to the government that speaker is one of those non-negotiable
Right.
scenario right now. I'm not saying that the government will back down and
Yes.
accept everything
Yes.
that these guys have to offer. But honestly speaking, if you ask me, I don't think that these two state leaders are also going to be impressed by just by doling out of special packages or the post of
Right.
governors and all.
Right.
They would also want a proper ministerial berth in the government. It is not that
Right.
that you can have top four. Nobody wants external affairs ministry
yes.
or nobody wants defense and all. It doesn't
Right.
do much to them. But these ministries, rural development, agriculture, railways
Yes.
and all,
Where
I
you
think
have a
there's going to
direct
be
link with the
pretty
constituents.
intense bargaining,
Right.
because they also know that the
Yeah.
government is dependent on them.
Right.
And they know how BJP behaves, and they are an absolute power, and they know how BJP behaves and they don't have an absolute power.
Right.
And flexibility part, I think, as we discussed yesterday, Sandeep, Prime Minister, when it comes to dealing with Nitish Kumar,
Yes.
has shown what he will do in the next 5 years.
Right.
He displays enormous level of flexibility
Yes.
when the situation doesn't suit him, and he's in the need of the person concerned.
Right.
So when Nitish Kumar, they needed Nitish Kumar, despite all kind of statement, all kind of bravado and
Yes.
all, they accepted Nitish Kumar quietly and went ahead with, despite a complete opposition by their state unit of Bihar.
Yes, absolutely. But coming back to the speaker, that is a position that was held by the TDP, if you remember, in 2002.
Balayogi.
GCM Balayogi
Balayogi, yeah.
held it for 2 years.
The
Then
conscience vote.
Yes.
If you remember the conscience vote,
Absolutely.
which led to fall of Vajpayee government.
Yes.
So I think, that is the reason why they feel that, that if you have got speaker,
Yeah.
you kind of save your
You're safe.
flock.
Yes, you keep your flock together.
You
And
are in a
indeed-
powerful position.
So that's you heard it here, that speaker is going to be a key bargaining chip between the Chandrababu Naidu's party, the TDP and the centre. But Dr. Verma, the post of speaker being up for bargain, you think? Will the BJP permit the speaker to be from a coalition partner?
It all depends, Sandeep, on the bargaining, powers and also the negotiation capabilities of rival different parties. I mean, you see, we cannot take one particular point as if it is non-negotiable. As Brijesh was saying that the TDP sources tell that this is non-negotiable thing.
No, they're starting with this.
If you come,
I didn't say that.
If you Brijesh, come with this kind of a mindset, then probably you are risking the entire, friendship and coalition, government. So I think, given the facts that they are senior leaders and they are quite they were 70s now, there should be some flexibility. If you are young and very young and you have a long inning to play,
Yes.
then probably you have that kind of rigidity. But
Right.
but both are, restricted by the number of they have already achieved. And therefore, I think there would be a good number of flexibility. Certainly with 240, 41 numbers, we would certainly not like to compromise on the post of Lok Sabha Speaker.
Right.
But let us see, you never know, because Modi's wider agenda is that Viksit Bharat up to 2047, and therefore compromises here and there cannot be ruled out.
Right, compromise can't be ruled out. But let's move to Bihar and Banuchandar. You have the JDU, and the JDU's had a long history of association with the NDA. Of course, both Nitish Kumar and George Fernandes were part of NDA cabinets. Very key positions, first as defense minister. George Fernandes was, of course, the defense minister, and Nitish was the railway minister. What would the JDU want now from this new government, NDA 3? What would Nitish Kumar's priorities be?
Nitish Kumar would definitely try to get agriculture, rural development, or railway, like what Brijesh was saying. So all of these will have direct impact on the economy of Bihar. And he will look at the next 1.5 years, right? That is his time frame. And he also knows that the people have rewarded the JDU this time, but his position as chief minister will be on the line when it comes to the state election. So he will try to see try to do as much as possible in the economic front to get things done. But where the flashpoint might be will be the uniform civil code, okay, and the Nitish has promised caste-based reservations. I think there is going to be like a bit of a debate and deliberation, and maybe will drop both or do something with amended clauses and so on. So we have to see the details, but I think Nitish will focus on getting maximum mileage on the economic front, at least in the next 1.5 years.
Right. Nitish will focus on those ministries. What about the smaller ministries, the smaller parties, Brijesh? What are you hearing about what they are asking for?
Well, LJP said that, they are interested in one senior ministry and also a respectable stake in the next assembly election.
Right.
Because they know that, that the more is in offing, and I think, if you ask a Chirag Paswan,
yes,
or if you ask even a Chandrababu Naidu or most of these regional Satatraps,
right,
they would be extremely happy to be the chief minister of their state,
yes,
rather than to be a minister at the center. They would want their acolytes all,
right,
like, their family and something to be representing them at the state. So I think Chirag is also looking for a decent chunk of seat sharing agreement as far as the state of Bihar, right, is concerned. This is what we have been given to understand.
Right. So
but Ham is also, HAM, yes, also said, right, that boss, we are also, just because we have one number, yes, doesn't mean that we can be
don't
excluded.
Rule us out.
So we should also be given one ministry and just. But I think, one of these MOS posts and all, because one thing is also there, yes, that 22 ministers have lost, yes, this election.
Yes, absolutely.
So apart from the key portfolios, you have 22 new vacancies. So right, the government has lot of positions to juggle with as far as yes, this accommodating its allies with lower number of seats.
Right, absolutely. So I think it's going to be a very crowded train, the NDA in its third avatar, as opposed to the first two installments of the Modi government, where you had the NDA all but in name. You had one or two portfolios that were given to ministers, to allies, and now you have the whole debate opening up. It's any guess what is going to happen in the next couple of days, as these rounds of intense bargaining are underway even as we speak right now, in the run-up to the swearing in a few days from now. But thank you very much for joining us this evening, Banuchandar, Nagarajan, Dr. Verma, and my colleague Brijesh Pandey. This is a story that we are going to be watching very closely, how the allies are going to play for the cabinet berths, why they want the berths that they want, a story that we'll be following very closely. Thanks for watching.